Hello and welcome back. We're live here from the ITWeb Security Summit 2023. Joining me now is Keitumetsi Tsotestsi. Did I do that justice?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, nearly. And she's from Vodacom, but today she's representing Geekculcha. Now, Geekculcha I know from hackathons, which we are currently running a hackathon on the other side of the conference. But Keitumetsi, Dumi, that's easy. Thank you. Dumi's kindly agreed to talk to us about the state of skills in South Africa. And cyber skills I know is a big issue.
Yeah.
But I think what you wanted to talk around is that we've got these kids, young people, who are coming out of schools, coming out of universities, colleges, and they've got a certain set of skills.
Yes.
And then they get into the workplace and we're expecting another set of skills that they don't quite match up.
Yes.
And I know that's been a problem for a number of years, this kind of disconnect, this divide, this gap. So tell me what Geekculcha is doing to kind of address that.
Okay. So Geekculcha in general, it's I guess I'll call it a community of IT students. So we don't necessarily focus on cybersecurity, but on IT holistically.
Sure.
But we embed the secure by design narrative so that all of these students, regardless of whatever age they are and regardless of whatever solutions they're developing, always think of security in mind so that they can take less of the they take more of the responsibility, but so that the consumer has less responsibility towards having to configure this and that, or looking out for these types of errors, etc. But what we do is first and foremost create awareness about the IT industry and cybersecurity. So you'll find a lot of the time when you ask children, what do you want to do when you grow up? They will only tell you about things they know.
Sure.
And so we just try to get out there and say, there are these options. And with IT, it's not just coding and development. And with cybersecurity, it's not just ethical hacking or penetration testing.
Sure.
Because those are also some of the limitations. So what we're trying to do is create that awareness that, look, there are these industries, and within these industries, there are so many components that are either very technical or non-technical.
Sure.
So when we do host these hackathons within the team component, we have the developer, we have the BA, the business analysis component, the testing component, the person who will be doing the pitch or the business side of that. And so that we can also just communicate that there are so many facets and so many areas of involvement that you can do from an IT perspective and a cybersecurity perspective. Even looking at, we always ask them, what considerations did you take? Who are your stakeholders?
Okay.
You know, you must look at the law. We are in this country, what must we adhere to? And also so that we can teach them that, don't tell me about your functionality, tell me what problem you're solving.
Sure.
We don't want to know that when you click this button, great firecrackers happen. We want to say, oh my goodness, the sky was bland, and so we decided to beautify it, and this is how. Another thing Geekculcha does is we have vacation programs. This is from primary school through to high school. So in school holidays, we expose them to corporate environments, or we have on-prem training to say, this is IT, this is what you can do, robotics, AI, etc. And at a varsity level, we actually collaborate with a lot of universities in South Africa so that we can say, even if it's not to the extent of incorporating hackathons into the formal syllabus, getting the details out there that there are hackathons happening so that if students don't have the resources, they can go to the school and do it there. And then why this is important, and as you said, we're having an event here, and we're asking everybody, please go there and just talk to them, because what you're going to say is, my name is Dumi and I do GRC, and they're going to be like, what is that? And suddenly they're having a conversation about something they didn't know about that might interest them, and they would look into that as a potential career path. Another thing that I really enjoy about hackathons, Steve Jump, he likes to say a hackathon is a real-time interview because you can see firsthand what a person can do.
their thought processes, how they're working, those kind of things. Okay.
And another thing about hackathons is it involves even the soft skills, teamwork, conflict resolution. You've got 24 to 48 hours to bring something out. It is high pressure. You can deliver under pressure. You understand roles and responsibilities. You can learn very quickly because you're presented with the challenge when it starts, and you have to have a solution by the end. It also tests endurance. It's overnight. You don't sleep. This, and that. And so when it comes to closing the gap, we would like people to go there and talk to the students so that they're aware of what's out there. But there's also a lot of learning that people in corporate get, because we also get so entrenched in our ways and our policies and married to certain technologies. And when you go to these hackathons, you're like, I never thought of it in that way.
Yeah.
And even some of the questions, the mentors would say, why don't you do this? And they'd be like, that makes absolutely no sense. And it's a safe space to say that, because you're not a CEO sitting with the junior where they would never dare to say, this makes no sense. They can then say to you, this makes no sense. These are the reasons. This is what I was thinking. Whether they're right or wrong is not the point. It's that the conversation is being had.
Sure.
From these hackathons, we've given, not us, but people that we collaborate with, jobs, bursaries, software, hardware, internships and things like that, and that's how we connect. And like I'm saying, because you see somebody, you're very keen to hire them.
Yeah.
It limits also the recruitment, what is
costs
fatigue and all of that, because you're already by the end of the hackathon very sure that this is who I want and this is what they're addressing. With companies as well, sometimes they come, they help us to facilitate the hackathon financially or whatever it is they can sponsor, and they bring their business problems. And now we've got all these kids that are actually helping to solve real life problems at a very reduced cost for the company. And it's things that they can then take and incubate and build into whatever it is that the company would need. So we're collaborating with public sector, private sector, and academia to get the ball rolling.
Okay. So I'm going to mention one of our sponsors, Snowed, who are helping us with this broadcast booth. Now, I know they're one of the sponsors at the hackathon, and I believe Telspace as well.
Yes.
And they're offering internships as one of the prizes. So again, I mean, as you're explaining, there's obviously a lot of value in that for these companies.
Absolutely. So for the companies, there's a lot of value in finding the type of talent you're looking for.
Sure.
Because like we say, there are so many jobs. And even when you apply as a new graduate, you never really know what you're getting into. But if you're an employer, you know exactly what you're looking for. And you might be able to find that person in that space. Another thing as well is we definitely are aware of the fact that us in the community, IT, cyber, we're very willing to take the students on.
Okay.
But there are limitations at corporate and HR, because they will come and say, we need a degree, we need this and that, we need a cert, we need 1,000 years of experience. And we need to come together and say, how do we change this? How do we take away the limitations? Cybersecurity and IT are very new. We cannot be using old recruitment strategies to identify talent. Something someone was saying yesterday is, in South Africa and I guess globally, we still assume that the more you've studied, the more you know and the more skills you have. And if you take somebody from high school who's, let's say, worked for 7 years, and you take someone with a PhD, who has the more skills from a cyber and IT perspective? You know, you might have the theory and the background at PhD level, but it's one of those industries where you need to get your hands dirty.
Sure.
And with hackathons, nobody's obliged. Everybody comes on a voluntary basis. So you already know that all the people are sitting there are there because they want to be there. They are teachable. They want to learn. And what more would you want as a company?
Okay. So I think you kind of touched on it, but I think if we could just delve down a bit more into it. What do we need to do as an industry? Hackathons are obviously great at kind of developing skills, giving exposure and experience, and giving companies this kind of insight into potential hires.
Yes.
But there must be more to it than
There
hackathons.
definitely is.
So if you were to kind of talk to industry, I'm going to make you the president of South Africa's cybersecurity industry today. What are your kind of top priorities? What are your top tasks?
So I think with 4IR, right, there is a strategy happening at a government level for the implementation of 4IR.
Okay.
And if we as companies and government and academia recognize the importance of that, we need to be very intentional and deliberate about investing in those skills. And a lot of the time when we ask for sponsorship, people assume we want money.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, there's definitely a lot we can do with money, but there's so much more that companies can give, like old devices that they may not be using, because you might find that some students don't have their own machines.
Sure.
So if you as a company are getting rid of devices, we have places that we can take those devices. We can be building libraries and tech areas in rural areas where people can come and have these hackathons. It can be data, it can be routers, it can be time as well. Because for example, with this hackathon, it's happening now, but we had a whole build-up where we had to teach people what security is.
Right.
And why is it important, and what should you consider. And that's where industry people would give their own time to come and just give a 1-hour lecture on a Saturday afternoon. That is not money, right? That's just, there are different kinds of investment. There are also things like when we are having a hackathon, drop off some hot dogs. You know, we need to feed the people. They're staying overnight. We need water. So the thing is, any contribution, no matter how small, is great. And even as a company, if you can only take one person to shadow, we will try to sort out transport and this and that. Like, let's not think that everything is set in stone. There are so many ways of assisting us to assist the community, and it just takes saying, what can we do? So I think also another thing that can be very beneficial for organizations is their CSI. CSI is literally about giving back to the community.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies' CSI initiatives are aligned to technology and enabling society. But every time we ask, so I've been asking everyone that here. So they come and they're like, these are our services, this is what we do. And I'm like, that's great. We're talking about the skills gap. What are you doing as a company to close that? And they're like, well, we have grad programs, we have internships. And I'm like, you could do like way more. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, did you go to the hackathon? Have you seen them? That's all they need.
Yeah.
It's not always money. And then I think also from an academia perspective, we really need to go about looking at the students and what they're being taught, because we find that from a readiness perspective, they might be learned. IT is already challenging because what you learn in your first year of varsity is already obsolete by the time you graduate.
Sure. Yeah.
And so how can we go about integrating innovation into the syllabus so that you are learning the theory, the fundamentals and what's important, but also aligning it to what's happening right now and what's happening currently. We cannot be teaching Visual Basic, and that's not what's being used in the industry anymore. So that's what, and then I think from a public sector perspective, we also need a lot of support there. But in working with them, what we've learned is they don't always have the capacity. So they do have the directive and the mandate, but they need the companies, whoever, to say, we have the capacity to facilitate this. So I think it's important as well for companies to see how they can get government support without it having to be from their own pockets, because government does have that mandate. Mm-hmm. Companies have that mandate. Academia has that mandate. So if we all have this mandate, I'm not understanding
why it's not
what's
working.
not clicking.
Sure. Look, Timi, I think that's been fantastic. You've covered a lot. And I think it's a subject that does need a lot of investigation. It needs a lot of coordination, I guess.
Yeah.
And Geekculcha is obviously playing its part.
Absolutely.
For people who want to find out more, how would they go about contacting Geekculcha? Okay. Is there a website?
Yes, there is. So our website is www.geekculcha.dev. And then on social media, all social media, it's Geekculcha. So Twitter is @Geekculcha, Instagram is Geekculcha, Facebook is Geekculcha. We've tried to keep it consistent everywhere. And on our websites as well, you're able to see upcoming events. You're also able to see previous events, so you can see what those were about. We have our materials on there. We have our pictures. Something I didn't mention, parents. Your kids are going to hackathons. They're not going to parties. Please believe them. Please
But you said there would be hot dogs.
Exactly. So the thing is, sometimes we do actually find we have to write letters to parents. We're happy to do that.
Yeah.
But parents are actually sometimes the limiting factor, because a student, let's say our youngest participant is 11, and she's probably had to take time off school to be here. And no parent wants to listen to that. And
Sure.
we definitely understand it's your directive as a parent, but we usually have these over weekends. And
Okay.
when a child comes and says, this event starts on Friday and ends on Sunday, we definitely understand that any parent will be like, not on my watch.
Yeah.
Where are you sleeping? On the chairs? It is something that sounds very like, we're not sleeping, we're just going to be on the bunch of everybody. Are there going to be boys and girls in the same room? They are mentors, they are judges, there are always people watching. They are never left alone to just figure it out, because they do need the guidance along the way. But please believe your children, give them the opportunity to take part in these things as parents, so that they can just open up their minds. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tumi, that's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let's hope together Geekculcha and the industry can start to change things.
Absolutely, I have no doubts.